What's going on, everybody? You know who it is. This is Austin, and this is the Austin Smith Real Estate Podcast, where we talk about real estate and we talk about lifestyle. And the crazy part is, I haven't even dropped the episode in Lord knows how long. Wow, it's definitely been a minute since I dropped an episode. So, as a result, ironically, the episode that I am dropping is probably the best episode content wise on exactly what you need to do in order to take your investing to the next level. Like, this is one of those episodes where I don't, and again, like, I know there's no way that everybody listens to the entire episodes when I put these out. So I'm not even faulting you for that. I don't even knock it. I try to get the bulk of the content within like the first 20 minutes or so that way you and your commute, you are able to get the gold from it. However, this is one of those episodes where you need to stop everything and listen to the whole episode and not just once. And I guarantee you this episode will change your life and just how you go about real estate investing. And it's changed mine. So like this strategy, these techniques that today's guests talk about, I've already started to implement. So if it's something that I'm doing, I definitely suggest anybody that is getting started or anybody that's looking to go to the next level, this is that episode. I can't stress it enough, and I hope you can hear it through my voice. This is the episode that the light bulb goes off in your head of what you need to do in order to tap into the extreme benefits that real estate investing offers. So, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's get into the show. What's going on, everybody? Today on the Austin Smith Real Estate Podcast, obviously, you know, we bring nothing but the best guests and the individuals that are doing it on a very, very high level. So that way, as they sit down, they can be here to provide some actionable steps. So that way, anybody that's listening can get up off the couch, start taking action, and start taking these deals down. We got another husband and wife team out of North Carolina. They didn't start there, but we'll talk about that. They're serial entrepreneurs, and right now, if you go to their platform, they're providing all of the material, the content that helps you, the investor, become a better deal finder. And this particular episode, I usually talk about finding deals a little bit. I usually talk about funding deals a little bit. But this particular episode, we're going to focus strictly on the strategies to find deals. And these real estate investors, they're mainly wholesalers, developers, and currently now they're educating exactly what I just mentioned as far as bringing people to the table so that way individuals can learn to fish for themselves so they don't have to worry about finding deals from others, leaving meat on the bone, the whole kit and caboodle. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to Dedrick and Crystal Polite. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show today.
Thanks for having us, Austin.
Thanks for having us.
No, absolutely. We'll dive right into it. Obviously, no one is born as a real estate investor. They may have family that may have influenced them. They may have read a couple of books. But for you two, how did you two get started? What's the background story?
So we both grew up in Boston and, did what our parents told us to do. They tell you to go to school, get good grades, you graduate, get a good job with benefits. But, neither one of those scenarios was for us. We both went to great colleges up in Boston, graduated, got jobs in corporate America. But we both were like, hey, this corporate job thing just isn't for me. Like, I was always had a side hustle, even when I was in corporate America. And my wife, she's been a serial entrepreneur since she was 18. So we've always had entrepreneurial ambitions. I read Rich Dad Poor Dad when I was 21, and that changed my mindset towards money and it opened my eyes to real estate as a way to build wealth and financial independence. So ever since I read that book, I was like, okay, at some point I got to do real estate. And, after I met this young lady, we got together, we were in our late 20s. And 3 years ago, we actually decided to dive into real estate investing full steam ahead. And we've each been able to become financially independent, leave our corporate jobs, and now we're full-time real estate investors and entrepreneurs.
Love it. So, Crystal, you mentioned that you were already kind of in your own entrepreneurial endeavors. What were you doing in some of the either businesses or some of the things that you were doing at such an early age? Because I was 18, so that's that's pretty early.
At 18, me and a friend of mine, actually my best friend, we started a party promotions business. We were already professional dancers. So it was just like a natural next step for us. From there, I went to college and I wrote, produced, and directed a stage play and took that on the road. So from there, it's just been a natural progression. I started my own nonprofit, basically helping inner city youth do exactly, or giving them the opportunities that I was afforded, and opening up different areas and different doors through arts and entertainment. And from there, it just went from that business to the next. Like he said, I've always had a different side hustle. I would typically only keep a corporate job no longer than a year or two max. Yeah. Would literally be the longest I would keep it. And I strategically place myself within companies that I wanted to learn a specific thing from, a specific niche that would help me in my business later. So that's what I was doing in my 20s. I wasn't looking for a corporate job to make a ton of money. I was literally looking for a corporate job that can help me in my own company once I launched that. So
you mentioned a very interesting thing, because I remember when I first, because I've only had one job after college, and one 9 to 5. And from there, I already knew it wasn't where I was going to end up. And you mentioned two things I wanted to piggyback. One, knowing your exit before you start, right? Or if you had that mentality, you might have just, decided to leave while you were in there. But me, I was like, okay, I'm going to work here for 2 years. I wind up being out in 2.5. But even the job before that, I think I was at Fridays. Yeah, I think it was at Fridays, and serving tables as a young dude. And I remember saying okay, I'm going to be out of here in 6 months, and then I was out in 5. So it's interesting that you already kind of have the end in mind. And I think even more importantly, because it's a perfect segue to my next question, was that you went after specific jobs that gave you what you were going to need in order to get to the next level. That's, obviously I didn't do that or anything like that, but let's talk about that, because when you're going into real estate, full time, and obviously, been doing it for 3 years, and then you said you started in 2017, you've been able to make headways. What do you attribute the previous skills, knowledge, what in particular helped launch your real estate investing career much more successfully than most people, where they start and then either they don't go far or maybe they fail?
Definitely education. So one of the things that my husband and I talk a lot about when we're talking to people is education. Before we ever did one real estate deal, we had already invested over $100,000 in just education. So joining masterminds, we were paying coaches and consultants,
experts in different marketing niches that we wanted to learn.
Yes. Yeah. My husband was reading any and every book that he can get his hands on. He would send me the Audible. What is it? Audible? Mm-hmm. The book. And then I just tell me about it. Just tell me about it. But education, exactly. Education is huge to us. And that's what really shortened our learning curve. So we tell people, you know, if you don't have a lot of money, you got to have a lot of time. If you don't have a lot of time, then you need to have money in this business. And starting out, we had sold a franchise that we had owned prior to this. So we invested a lot of that money into education and educating ourselves on the business.
Yeah, just to add to that, the skill that I developed coming out of college was sales. I've been in sales pretty much since I was 21. And, you know, I think it's like the highest paid profession other than a doctor, lawyer, CEO is sales, right? Most CEOs who rise to that level, they came up through the sales ranks. So I think learning how to sell is transferable, whether you're selling real estate, you're selling cars, you're selling insurance. If you have that skill to learn how to sell and persuade people, it's very transferable. And I just put a post on Instagram the other day talking about how I've done very well in sales and made over 6 figures in corporate America. 2018, I made $149,000 in my sales job. That was salary plus bonus. To most people, that's their holy grail, right? You're making 6 figures, doing well. But I brought in $2.3 million in sales revenue to the company. So I brought in $2.3 million, and they only paid me $149,000. So I was happy, right? Because that's kind of a lot of money. But I was also like, man, I'm kind of getting played here. What if I put my efforts into my own company and brought in that $2.3 million? I get to keep probably, you know, half of that. So that's a skill that's very important, learning how to sell.
Interesting. I'll play devil's advocate a little bit with you too. And it's great that you said that if you don't have money, then you're going to have to sacrifice the time. If you don't have the time, you're going to have to sacrifice the money, but it's going to have to be one or the other. And, you know, where you two invested a good chunk of change to put yourself in the environment, which is so important and so misunderstood, of putting yourself in the right environment. Do you have any regrets as far as spending that amount of money, right? Because half of us will say, listen, just find the mentor that, you know, will just believe in you, shadow him, and then, you know, do whatever. And then the other people, you know, will say, hey, you don't need to spend that money. Like, anybody that spends that amount of money is crazy out of their mind. They don't need to do that. Just, you know, they just need to work hard. What do you say to that? Because it's one of those touchy subjects where I feel like a lot of people get ragged on for spending money to invest in their education, or spending like a good chunk of change to invest in their education, when, you know, there are the free resources, and there is YouTube University, and obviously all the books and the free courses and things like that. So what's your thoughts on that?
So what I would say to that is, which you're correct. And we're one of the people who tell people as well, like, listen, if you don't have a lot of money, then you better have a lot of time. But there's YouTube University can only take you but so far.
Right. Free resources.
And before we started spending money, we were on YouTube. That's how, you know, my husband first got introduced to it, was YouTube. And that was through Nasser, I think back in 2012 or something?
Yeah, he's a good friend of ours now.
About 2012, he was watching him and showing me his videos and things of that nature. And this is before anyone knew who he was. And he was pumping out, there was no Max Maxwell at that time. It was Nas pumping out YouTube videos. And
Mark Whitten
is the one who I had first gravitated to. And we were all on their YouTube. I was taking I was taking like Mark Whitten's courses and things of that nature. So we were literally, you know, doing what we could do that cost minimal, right? But it could only take you so far. So we knew in order for us to get to the next level, and it also has a lot to do with just our background, because we were already entrepreneurs. So we know what it takes to really get to the next level in any business. We knew we had to invest in us, which in return is going to invest in our business. And in order for us to do that, we had to get around like-minded individuals. We needed to get around people who are already making $1 million, $2 million in this industry, to be able to shorten our learning curve and to get to where they are instead of 5 years, in 6 months, in 1 year. And that's what made us make that decision to be like, because listen, my husband came kicking and screaming. Our mastermind, first mastermind, was
$16,000.
$16,000.
October 2017. We hadn't closed the deal yet. We were still trying to figure it out. We went to a conference and we joined a mastermind, a high-level master. We spent 16 grand. Hadn't closed one deal yet. We put on a credit card, right? We jumped out on faith, but it was that decision that got us around other people who were making 7 figures a year, flipping houses. And that was part of our process, right? Getting around those people. So that, and then once you look at some of the top high-level performers in the business, Austin, I'm sure you know this, they're all part of masterminds, right?
Yep.
That's the secret. They're part of masterminds, that association, that power
It's
of that,
powerful.
of being exposed to that.
And like he said, we hadn't done one deal, but he was like, I told my husband, I said, go. We had business credit because we had another business at the time. I said, listen, go swipe.
We didn't have the cash, but we had the credit.
Let's go get this started.
And then once we spent 16 grand on the credit card, we were like, we got no choice but to at least close a couple deals. We got to pay back this damn credit card.
Right.
So it wasn't like, oh, is this gonna work? We're like, no, we gotta pay back this credit card.
Just to show you how it worked, our third deal alone, just our third deal was $105,000. We made $105,000.
Virtual wholesale.
Virtual, and we went virtual immediately in our business. But it was that power of association and aligning with people who are already doing this at a high level.
I love how you mentioned that because one of the things that they talk about, not to get too scientific, but when they talk about neurology and neuroscience and how like attracts like, or even if, for example, if you're trying to, right, because you have to elevate your thinking. Everything that you've done so far, you don't have the capacity, right? Because they say attraction law, right? Attraction law, when you're, attracting these deals or attracting the money that comes with it, you have to almost expect it. And obviously when you're talking about, when you start talking about those high figures, it's hard. You can think about it. You can fantasize about it. You can, visualize it. But the missing component is the expectation, like when you actually know without a doubt, right? And it's only at that point do things start to happen for you. And I'll just say that, and to piggyback what we're saying, once you're in those mastermind groups, especially when you, if you're new and things like that, it's that makes the expectation so much easier because of that synergy. And when you're leaving and you're handling your own business, I can see how, and I've just seen it just whether it's real estate or just anything else, like anything else in life. When you have that expectation and you put yourself in an environment where you expect those things to happen, that's when, and that was the only time when those things start to actually happen. So, and being around those people help elevate that mentality so that way you can get onto an expectation level rather than just a visualization or just a hope and a prayer and a dream. So I commend you for, spending that money to go do that, because I know for guys, we struggle with our ego and we struggle with fear of failure. And I realized that, me personally, even you spending the $16,000, I would have been nervous about it. So I completely understand. I commend you on that because and again, when those things happen to you, and then as those deals happen to you, it's a no-brainer. Why not? Like, why wouldn't the third deal be an $105,000 deal if you were with individuals that were doing that or probably more on a consistent basis, right? Like, so why wouldn't it happen? So I love that. Let's really get into this, to the nitty-gritty of this. Finding deals. I think one of the biggest topics is, I don't know, there's no good deals. I can't find any good deals. My market's too expensive. What do I do? And, whether it's wholesaling, flipping, buying, hold, as we were talking before, that's just the exit strategy. It all starts with the great deal, and then you can do with it what you would like based off of your own investing criteria. Let's talk about finding deals or your favorite strategies for finding deals, or the psychology behind finding deals in your particular market, and we'll start off with there.
Yeah, before my wife jumps in, she handles all the marketing. She is the deal finding guru. But when we first got started, we were just like everyone else. We went to this conference in October 2017. We were like, look, we're trying to figure out how to flip houses, but we don't know marketing. So we have to figure out how to market, right? Wholesaling and flipping houses, 98% of it is marketing. And she took it on as her project, right? Because I'm like, I'm handling the sales. I don't want to figure out this marketing thing. She's like, look, I'm going to take it on. And she literally approached it like a puzzle, right? We're sitting at our little desk here, and she's always working on puzzles. She literally approaches marketing like a puzzle, and she analyzes it and breaks it down, and then she puts it all together. So you want to kind of talk about your philosophy about marketing and then break that down?
So
before you even, sorry to cut you off, I like how you mentioned, first things first, I love the husband and wife team. Wifey, my wife's currently at her main job right now. She's with American Express, but she invests with me on the buy and hold scenario, and she handles the accounting and kind of the management of the books, and I can take down the deals. So it's perfect because I suck when it comes down to operations and keeping things straight, knit, and everything like that. I'm all over the place. It can be good for sales, but not great for the operations of it or the accounting of it, or, so when it comes down to the end of the year and we're filing our taxes, all of our accounting stuff is right there. I can see everything. Like, it's perfect because that's what I need, to operate. But I like how you, like I said, one, the husband and wife team, but two, you've split up the marketing and the sales aspect of the business, which I think is so key, misunderstood, because marketing is the fishing and bringing the fish in and obviously bringing in the leads. And then sales is actually closing the deals and getting in front of the prospect and actually closing the deal. So I just wanted to point that out, especially for the listeners, because I think that most people, they try to take on both hats and they don't realize that they're not good at that. Perfect case in point, I'm great at sales, but I'm also trying to do the marketing. It's just not as efficient. I can make it work, but obviously there's going to become a point where on scale, because I'm a real estate agent, as far as like full-time, on scale, I can't do that. I obviously see that. Right. So I love how y'all broke apart sales aspect and then the marketing aspect. It's so key and so misunderstood in business in general. So break that down, Crystal.
Absolutely. So when I went into it full time, first thing I said was, okay, I have to take something major off his plate.
I was still working a job.
And so he was still working. And that turned out, I said, well, I'll do marketing, which I knew nothing about and was really afraid of it. But once I started really deep diving into it and taking a look at, what marketing was, we had already paid some consultants to teach us the marketing. Now I started to actually go back and look at all the stuff they sent us and they taught us, because I didn't even look at it before. I just let Dedrick handle it. So I started to really go back and look at list building, looking at our actual market, our target market. And it started to make sense to me at that point. So what I started doing with him was I started to, because like I said, we started off virtual in both markets. So at the time we were cold calling. When we first started out, we were cold calling and it was going okay. We got a couple properties under contract, deals fell through. And then I started looking at other areas, other forms of marketing. And I came across Deal Machine. And that was the Driving for Dollars app that we use. And I came across that on a YouTube video from Max Maxwell. I immediately went to my husband and said, hey, I want to download this app. Max said, told him the whole spiel. He was like, no, that'll be something else we just going to end up paying for. No, we don't need it.
I said no at first.
And I said, okay.
I'm glad she didn't listen to that.
I said, just right in front of him, I said, okay, good.
She said, we're using it.
I'd already downloaded it. And I just started using it. And
as we're driving around town, she would be like, hold on, pull over. I'm like, what? She's like, I got to take a picture of this house. I'm like, what are you doing? She's like, I'm using this app to find those deals. So I'm like, okay, I pull over.
Exactly.
She takes the picture, and I'm like, what are you doing? And she kept doing it. And then she finally broke down this app. Then like a couple months later, we started getting phone calls. And I'm thinking it's cold calling, right? Because we had hired a cold calling company. We outsourced it, and we had a handful of leads we were working. So I'm like, okay, this cold calling is really working. And she's like, no, those last 5 calls that came in from motivated sellers was from Driving for Dollars. We sent them postcards, and they called us back from the postcards. I'm like, really?
Right. So we had probably about 4 deals under contract, and all of them came from Driving for Dollars. But in the process, I was building out the our Driving for Dollars process, our Deal Finder program, and I was doing it through. I recruited my mother as our first Deal Finder, and I built my process around her. So I was constantly switching out. When she first started, I wasn't paying her. I was literally building out. Hey, how many properties she was entering in a week, how many she entered in 2 weeks. And I took that number down all the way up to a month, so I knew what the minimum could be. And she's like 60-something years old. Retired, driving part-time, because she was a nanny for us as well, driving part-time. And once I started to see the numbers for it, and then started seeing our percentage of callbacks on it, I pushed more money behind that form of marketing. I cut off our cold calling. I stopped that, and I put everything into direct mail, which was Deal Machine.
And just to pause right there, a few things I want to note is you hear direct mail. It still works. It does work. And when we first got into the industry, we were asking people, how are you making $30,000, $40,000 a month wholesale and flipping houses? And they're like, oh, I send a ton of direct mail. How many mailers do you send? I send 20,000 mailers a month. How much does it cost? We're newbies. We're asking all the questions. How much does it cost? Oh, I spend like 10, 20 grand a month. We're like, we don't got 10, 20 grand a month to spend on mailers.
Right.
So the beautiful thing about Deal Machine is that you can send super targeted direct mail. You don't have to send 10,000 of them and blink in the neighborhood. You're driving down, in Jersey City or Newark somewhere, you see an abandoned property, pull over, take a picture, you can send that owner a postcard. You drive down the next street, you see a property that looks dilapidated, send that guy a postcard. And you can do it targeted, and it costs a lot less money.
Absolutely. And that's what we were able to do in scale.
I like that because I think one of the basic strategies, right, is it, and that's easy, that's usually the easiest, direct mail. And then they tell you who, and then they tell you, absentee owners. And then you get a flood of absentee owner, listings, go build your list from ListSource, and then, start hitting the pavement. I like how y'all, you started off with cold calling because, again, when you were talking about either you're going to use it in time or you're going to use, you're going to exhaust your resources and money, that was time consuming. And that's almost, it's almost similar kind of to what I'm doing now. The only difference is with me, if it's a deal, awesome. If not, then I'll just list it on the regular retail market. So I get to kind of dabble in between the two. But however, obviously the passion is more in the investing side of things. So eventually I'll probably have to I'll probably have to make that decision to cut things off. I did like how you mentioned that once you found what was actually working instead of what you think is working or what you see other people doing that's working for them, that obviously you were able to, because at that point it's numbers, right? And in business, they teach us know your numbers. If you know your numbers, you can scale. And that's one of the big things that I've been tracking, over this year is the numbers, because I wasn't doing that before. And although business grew, it's still just not proper to be a business owner and not know your numbers. Because then obviously that's the difference between you growing 5% or you growing 40%. And it's so important. So one, I want to just real quick talk to us about exactly what the Deal Machine app is, and then we'll unpack a little bit as far as the virtual side of of finding deals, because at that point you're able to break into markets that you wouldn't normally be in, which I think is so key, especially for the people that may be in a more.
Yeah, so basically, Deal Machine is an app that makes the process of driving for dollars a lot easier. So if you've heard of driving for dollars, it's getting in your car, driving around your neighborhood and looking for houses that show signs of distress. It could be the grass knots cut. It could be the windows are boarded up. It could be, it's just looking old and beat up. See that property, typically what you do is you grab a piece of paper, you write down the name, the address, the property address, you go home, you have to look it up on the county records. Nobody ever looks it up. No one ever follows up, right? That's the problem that Deal Machine solves. So literally with the app, you can pull out your phone, you snap a picture of the property, you hit send, you can send that owner a postcard or a letter saying, hey, my name is Austin. I was driving through the neighborhood. I noticed the house looked vacant. Any chance you would be looking to sell? I can pay cash and buy it, close quickly. And you send out enough of those, right? Not like 50 of them, I'm talking about like 500 or 1,000 of those a month. You're going to start getting phone calls. And that's literally been our most effective marketing strategy for finding deals, which is us driving for dollars, using the app and sending out mailers and building a team of folks all around the country. We have hundreds of deal finders who do the same thing, right? We pay them for the deals that they send us.
And you can start off with sending out 200. If you get a good 200 of
200 a month.
Distressed properties, mailers going out, it's going to get your phone to ringing. Our first one came in and we had about 100, a little less than 150 in Deal Machine. And at that time, my mother was the only deal finder. When we got our very first phone call, we had about 149, 48 properties in Deal Machine,
mailers going out
mailers,
every
on
month.
market.
Yep.
But it wasn't until by the time we got the first one contracted, we probably had about 200. At the time, my mother was uploading about 50 to 100 properties a week into the app.
And love the breakdown of that because there's so many strategies, right? There's so many strategies where you have driving for dollars, cold calling, direct mail, ringless voicemail, text blast, Facebook ads, Google ads, all these different marketing channels. And you found the holy grail as driving for dollars. I want to point out that I believe one of the key reasons why is because, like you said, these are the homes that are clearly distressed, right? Because a lot of the times we're taught absentee owner or, tax delinquents.
Everyone goes to List Source and they buy the absentee owner list, but it's a list that 10,000 other investors are targeting. Right. What we love about driving for dollars is you can't buy that list. When you're driving through your community, your neighborhood, you can physically see the properties, right? You can't buy that list. It's a unique list to your area. So that's one of the great things about it.
And then a lot of the properties, a lot of people don't understand, and we get this a lot when it comes to like students in our course, is they'll go to a property and it's clearly vacant, but they'll see that it's showing as owner occupied. So if you're pulling a list on like List Source, that property is vacant that you can physically see had you been driving in your neighborhood is not going to make that list because it's showing as owner occupied.
Right,
and a lot of people, exactly, except for typically more experienced investors will go after owner occupied. So we didn't start off with owner occupied. Do we mail to them now? Yes, because we literally purchased and wholesaled quite a few properties from owner occupied properties. But I just tell people, of course it's great to pull lists, but the best list you're ever going to get and ever going to have is the list that you get driving for dollars, because that list nobody else is going to have. And a lot of those properties from the list that you're pulling in the neighborhood is not going to make every list. So you got to be really careful of that.
Are you finding out that as you're going after these driving for dollar properties, are you finding a consistent theme with their motivation of selling? Like, are you, do we just happen to find out that, hey, out of the 10 deals that we did from driving to dollars, 8 of them wound up being behind on their taxes, or 7 of them wound up actually being in foreclosure? Are you finding a consistent theme, or is it just the fact that
Yeah, we found a few consistent themes. One of the top motivation factors that we found is probate. Probate. That's when someone passes away, they didn't have a will, so their property goes to their oldest child or relative. And typically, when you get a house that's in probate, it's an unfortunate situation if someone passed, but it's a gold mine as an investor. Because typically, that person who inherited the property, a lot of times they live out of state or they don't want anything to do with the property. They just want to sell it. They don't want to move into it. They just want to sell it quickly. So probate is been a pretty common one we've seen. We've also seen tired landlords. So these are landlords who call us and say, hey, listen, I wasn't thinking about selling, but I got your postcard and I thought I'd just give you guys a call and just see how much you give me for my house. Because, these tenants are late this month. So, what you got?
Yeah, those are our two biggest actual motivations for people selling is probate and tired landlords. And that's why I tell people, and a lot of people joke about my methods, but I tell people, hey, listen, if I put family members' houses in deal machine and I've mailed for that. You listen, she ain't playing. I mailed, matter of fact, the house that we just got in the contract that we're closing on, we're buying and holding it. My cousin used to live there and I put it in the app when she was still living there.
She was renting.
She was renting. And I tell people, listen,
do what you gotta do.
If they don't own it, it's for sale. Like, I mean, it's not like they can't pay you rent.
If it's not gonna be you, it's gonna be somebody else.
It's gonna be somebody else. Right. Thank you.
It's gonna be somebody else.
I tell people a lot of landlords don't know they're tired until they get your postcard. And we get about 80% who says, hey, I wasn't thinking about selling until I got your postcard. Now I'm starting to think about it. Or now my wife has said, yeah, call them back like right now. And that's literally like 80% of our calls is from tired landlords. So I really drive home for absentee in our area because it's a huge market.
I love it. And honestly, I mean, I can just tell where this particular podcast is going, that we're, and forgive me because it's going to be one of those things where it goes like a little bit over time, but I don't think, I want people to honestly realize whether you're newbie or whether you're, seasoned and just looking to take your business to the next level. The goal that you guys are providing right now is honestly invaluable to a particular person's business and what they need to do in order to get to the next level. So I'm gonna continue to kind of pull back the curtain here. So here we go. So let's break this scenario down where my market is too expensive and I'm looking to invest in a different market. Now, if I'm correct, I'm pretty sure at least, but the North Carolina, kind of metro area is way larger than, Newark per se, or downtown or, Charlotte or anything like that. But that particular metro is probably a lot bigger than Newark and the surrounding areas. So my market is too expensive. I'm looking to break into a new market. Let's say I'm in New Jersey and Philly is not too far from me. And Philly has more of a price range that I'm comfortable getting into deals, X, Y, and Z. Are you outsourcing, the deal finders themselves? Like, are you already establishing people in those markets to go out and start driving for dollars?
Yes, that is correct. So a lot of people find us through social media. And they reach out to us like, hey, are you looking for a deal finder? I'm in this location. So we are only accepting deal finders in major cities.
Major metros, Philly, New York, Jersey, Newark, Boston, cities like that.
So our main markets that we market in, that I do marketing in, is Boston and North Carolina. So we do have deal finders in those, like the Charlotte areas, the Boston areas, but we do outsource all the other major cities, the Atlantas, things of that nature. I tell people be very careful about getting individuals in smaller towns unless you are in that smaller town. So we live in a smaller town. So if we had a deal finder come on like, hey, I'm also in that area. I love the deal find for you. Oh, okay. Because it makes sense because this is our backyard. But if it's in a different state and it's in like something called,
Podunk,
Missouri.
Hold on.
You got to think about acquisitions as well as dispositions on that. And hey, listen, how are you? Who are you gonna get to go look at these properties and know what they're talking about, getting these pictures and videos? But also, who do you have as an end buyer for these properties?
And just to add, this Driving for Dollars and Deal Machine has allowed us to go virtual. So we invest nationwide. We've flipped properties in probably 5 different states.
Right.
Sitting here in North Carolina, right? That third wholesale deal we did in Boston, it was a virtual wholesale. We never saw the property other than on our computer. We locked it up for $475,000. It was an out-of-state landlord. He lived in Jersey. He had inherited a property in Boston 20 years ago. He had no idea what was going on, all the flipping activity going on in this neighborhood of Boston. We knew the ARV of the property was $1.5 million. It's a triplex. So what they do in Boston is they gut those triplexes. They put $100,000 in rehab into each floor, and they sell each floor as a condo, 3-bed, 2-bath for $500K. So he wanted $500,000 for the whole building because he had no idea what was going on. So we ended up getting this property under contract for $475,000. This is our third deal, and we wholesale it to a cash buyer for $580,000. So made $105,000 that one deal. We never saw the property until we went up to Boston after we closed it. It was like, oh, this is the deal, the property.
Yeah.
So that was the third deal that wound up you did 105, and you did mention that, and you did that virtually. So yeah. There you have it. Welcome. Thank you for coming onto the podcast. It's very cool. And again,
now every deal isn't that size, right? I don't want people to get the wrong expectation. Typical wholesale deal, 10 to 20K, but sometimes
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because at the end of the day, it's the action that puts you in the position to do that. Regardless of the fact, even if it's not, those home run deals come, and I'm pretty sure, as you guys continue to,
we've had several that.
We had several 6 figures at this point.
Yeah, so there's going to be more. So out of 10 deals, one of them is guaranteed to be a home run. So it's just going to continue to happen. So while we don't want to mislead and make it seem like every wholesale deal is going to be that way, at the same time, it happened because we took the action and actually did it. You know what I'm saying? So yes, this is also why we do get into the business to have that unlimited earning potential, regardless of the fact, and it's the law of averages, right? So at the end of the day, as the more deals that you do, the more home runs that there are going to be in. So for example, in your case, that deal happened to be the $105,000 deal. The house that I bought, the 3-family that I bought last year, while we were under contract, it wound up appraising for $100,000 more than what our original contract price was. So, but again, it doesn't we're not looking for that. We're not hoping and praying for that. We just know that those things can happen. And all it took was just the action behind it, past the fear, putting the offers out, submitting the offers, getting on the contract, and then the rest take care of itself. So, I appreciate you for bringing the listeners back down to earth, but then also, expanding the listeners' minds that no, this is possible. This is living proof, and it's going to continue to happen. So, and mind you, that was virtual. So that's out of state. That's obviously I know you were familiar with that area because you were in that area and have been there before, but it just, it also demystifies the I have to touch it. Real estate's the thing that you have to touch. We have to be there. But these individuals buy stocks day and night, and they can't touch that particular company. They can't touch that particular stock. So to piggyback off of that, I think that it doesn't matter because it's about the action. And going back to what we were saying before, this was destined to happen simply because you already had spent the time, resources, money to put yourselves in the environment for those types of deals to happen. So,
just to add to that, Austin, what happened was we got obsessed. We literally got obsessed with real estate. And in order to be successful at anything, you got to get obsessed. You got to live, eat, breathe real estate. And that's for the past 3 years, that's what we've done. So that's the type of results you get when you get obsessed with it.
And the last thing I wanted to point out was that
this is what happens, or, this is what happens when you take mentorship and the learning process to another level, because obviously you've only been doing this for 3 years and have produced probably more results than people that have been doing it, in a decade, and have taken more action than people that are doing it, in 6 months or whatever the case. But this is the fruits of the labor. So everything that comes is honestly deserved. And that's for, a testimony for everyone that's listening, that once you submerge yourself, like completely submerge yourself in this business, those are the type of things that can happen. Okay, so so going back to that particular scenario, I'm looking to break it into a new market. Me hiring people that can do these driving for dollars. I love the theory that driving for dollars is the one strategy that, although may be a little bit more time consuming, doesn't mean that you have to do it, just means that it's time consuming. But it also is the one list that you can't buy on ListSource, you can't buy on Melissa Data, REI Skip. I use REI Skip.
Title Toolbox.
Right. So like, all these companies, and that is the major piece, because and it's also a testimony to me, because I'm being selfish as well. I provided more than enough for my listeners, but right now this is a coaching session for me. So I'm taking in all of it, and I'm asking selfish questions, because as much as my listeners want to know, I'm pretty sure that I want to know as well. But I love, so I love that with that particular list building, that's the list that most people can't buy, because it is the list itself. Like, you can market to anybody and it can fall on deaf ears, but the gold is in the list that you're actually marketing to, not the actual marketing piece. Well, actually, I won't say that. Is it the marketing piece as well? Or is it, obviously I know the list is a big component of it, but, are you split testing different?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So with this, just to give you an example, I export our list out of Deal Machine ever so often. So it's typically, I think I do it every 3 months at this point. But what I ended up doing is, so we do ringless voicemail as well. We have a conveyor belt of for our marketing systems. So we actually just started text blasting. So we had done text blasting in the past. It was just it didn't work for us. Never saw a return on it, never got a lead from it. It just wasn't something that, worked for us. So I stopped. And then REI Rail has come out with text blasting. So, they're dropping it soon. So we were beta testing it for them. So what I ended up doing is, so even though with Deal Machine, I put that same Deal Machine list, I'll export it, and then we'll cold call it.
We'll hit it with different types of marketing.
We'll hit it with
yeah, because not every homeowner is going to respond to a postcard. Some will respond to a text message. Exactly. Some will respond to a call. Some will respond to a carrier pigeon. Like, so people are different.
There's one list that I hadn't touched in over a year, because I'd hit it for probably about a year prior. And I hit it for like 12 months with all different forms of marketing. Only one I hadn't tried was text. So when they came out with it, I was like, oh, okay. I said, here, let's try this list. I hadn't done this one in a year. So we threw it in the text blast system. And this was just Deal Machine leads. This is a driving for dollars list. From that list, we ended up pulling, it was about 18 leads from this list that I hadn't touched in a year. About 18 leads, let me rephrase that. We've pulled about, now to date, because she sent me 8 more this week. So we pulled probably about 28 to 30 leads. Warm leads, about 15. Hot leads that we are working out the logistics on for contracts, or we've got a contract to them, is about 5. And this was from us taking an old Driving for Dollars list, putting it now into Text Blast. So from that same list, we tried ringless voicemail. We got more leads from it. through ringless voicemail that didn't respond through direct mail. We cold called that same list and also got a ton of leads from it who didn't respond to ringless voicemail and didn't respond to direct mail. And now we've put it into text blasting and got a slew of more people, which, like I said, I hadn't touched that list in a year, literally in a year.
And it's kind of to your point earlier, Austin, you say you started marketing based on your personality, right? And what's comfortable to you. And it's the opposite, you know, prospects and homeowners respond to what they're more comfortable, what medium they're most comfortable in. So that's why, we realize direct mail isn't a silver bullet for every prospect. You have to try different types of marketing. If they don't respond to one, you move them to the next one and to the next one.
Yep.
I love how you've, and again, like I want to put so much emphasis for the people that are listening of them, what you two are absolutely, doing are absolutely amazing because you're systemizing your lead gen strategy, which the leads are the life and bloodline of your business. And to your point, different pieces of marketing, ringless voicemail, text blast, the most we're under contract on 8 units to buy and hold. Those came from text blast. And what I love about text blast is that, or similar to most of the marketing, except for cold calling, the only reason why I'll do cold calling is because I know that I'm doing everything that I can with the time that I have to put myself in front of people that may be looking to sell. And cold calling is one of those things where it's just easy to initiate. You can pick up the phone and start to go. You don't have to set anything up or anything like that. You just go. But I love how and for the people that are listening, grabbing that list, right? Grabbing that list of potential properties. Right now, it's Deal Machine is doing the skip tracing for you, correct?
No, we outsource our skip tracing.
So we're exporting
it. We'll send it to, actually, we use REI Skip.
Okay, so I use the same. And REI Skip is pretty straightforward.
Yep.
And love it. They'll return it. So basically, for people listening, I'm going to help them break it down because this is absolute gold. Finding that particular target market. Obviously, when we're talking about a greater metro area, there's most likely, and I love, I call it the fringe areas. The fringe areas on those greater big metro areas, it's just a tidal wave. Just imagine an earthquake and the seismic waves going out from that major metropolitan area. All those areas are going to be affected, and all those areas eventually are just going to continue to have their price values rise, or they're going to be great investment opportunities. So locating that particular area, boom. Locating the fringe areas of those metropolitan areas, boom. Grabbing, you're outsourcing, you're driving for dollars, so now they're looking for all the vacant properties in that area. Boom, they come back to you with a list of 250, 500, whatever that number is. You're giving that to the skip tracing company. In this particular case, REI Skip, that comes back, phone numbers, emails. I don't use the emails pretty much, but phone numbers, probably the most important because you already probably have their property address. And if you have their property address, you also have their mailing address most of the time. But so getting that list, and then you have the mediums to contact these individuals, and those mediums, whether it's ringless voicemail, text blast, direct mail, cold calling, whatever the case, now you're reaching out to these individuals on multiple mediums based off of what they would like to, how they would like to respond. And I give the perfect analogy of lemon lime soda, right? Perfect case in point. You have Sprite, you have 7-Up, you have Sierra Mist, you have Yellow Mellow, you have Dr. Fizz. You have so many different lemon lime flavored sodas, and whatever particular, they're going to match whatever product to that particular end buyer. Whichever one works with everyone works. It doesn't matter. But this is also the reason why Coke, I believe, has 27 different sodas. I believe it is. I think it's 27, but it's some outrageous number. It's not just Coke and Coke Cherry or whatever the case. There's so many different products because you might not like Coke or Coke Zero or Coke Cherry or Coke Vanilla or Coke, but you might like Coke this. You know what I mean? So I think it's amazing that, you're breaking it down in that particular strategy because I think it's so important and it's so overmissed because I can't tell you how many people, including myself when I first started, where we send out a direct mail and that's it. And then she's like, oh, didn't work, whatever the case. And it's just like, no, like that, you have to
Right.
keep getting them over different mediums because they might respond in a different limelight that you would. You might have a cell phone number, but they themselves don't even know how to use the text message or anything like that. So they might not know how to text back, but they know how to answer a voicemail, or they might know how to read a postcard, or they might know just how to pick up the phone call where you're on the other line cold calling. So
Absolutely.
I love how you have a conveyor belt system, because that's how I tried to structure mine, where I'm only dealing with maybe 3 mediums for right now, where the text blast will go out. Whoever doesn't respond back to the text blast, they'll get a ringless voicemail. Whoever doesn't respond that, then I'm getting them and hitting them with cold calling. Now I'm doing all the cold calling. So now a big thing for me that I've gained from this particular podcast is being able to outsource some of those things, especially cold calling, because it's one of those things that can be a little bit more time
Hey,
consuming.
I'm in sales. I don't like cold calling.
Listen, it's one of those things like, I can do it. And it's just like, it works, but obviously there's, that's just one of the mediums that work. And I'm, like we were talking about before, putting yourself in the best case or in your best space where you're most effective. I'm just
Right.
not, I'm great. I'm solid at it. I'm decent at it, but I'm doing the best work when I'm either on the phone with that motivated seller or in front of them building rapport. That's where I shine the most. So trying to find ways that I can continue to just do that 20% activity. So I absolutely love it. All right, so as we start our descent here, and we've set up our system, we now have our various mediums that we are now contacting resellers and things like that. What's your debate, and we'll finish it with this before we start into the core 4, but for people that are looking to start part-time, I tell everybody, if you have the full-time job, keep the full-time job, and then, build the business on the side.
Yeah.
I made that mistake, and I was
Yeah.
like, entrepreneur life, and then you
Don't
jump
quit
out,
your
like,
day job. Don't do it.
learn the hard way, and was like, man, if I would have known, I would have built it on the side, part-time. Do I have any regrets? I don't. The only thing I would have done is I would have probably bought a house first. I probably would have bought a multifamily first, because then I realized that banks don't like entrepreneurs. The banks don't like 1099 employees. So I had to learn the hard way on that, at least for the first 2 years.
So many rentals.
We literally had an exit strategy from the very, very beginning. And him leaving his job, me leaving my job, then him leaving his job. And a big part of him leaving his job was making sure we secured as many properties as we could before he left it.
Love it. Okay, so obviously you're doing a plethora of deals. You're investing all over the country. You're teaching others how to do it via your platform, via your website. So you're already doing it on a large scale. Last question before we go into the core 4. So what's next? Is it just expansion? Do you see yourselves going into different avenues in real estate? What's next? Or what's like the 5-year plan? What's that setting up like?
So multifamily is really what's next for us. Our goal is to buy a 100-unit apartment building within the next 6 months. So literally, we are scouring and putting together marketing plans and to secure a 100-unit apartment building. So that's our next step, is multifamily.
And then we purchased quite a bit of land as well. So what's on my docket is lining up all the logistics and things that we need for development of some apartment buildings.
Love it. All right. Those are pretty lofty goals. So blessings and prayers out to you, obviously, and the fact that you have the and you know what else I love about how you two run the business is that it's process based and not results based. So in this particular case, right, whatever the goal is, and they're just breaking down the process in order to get there, you already kind of have the data of what you've done in the past of, okay, with us sending out this many mailers over the course of this many months, here's how many leads we come, here's how many deals we close, things like that. And now you're almost able to take that data and then reverse engineer the even bigger goals and breaking them down to, okay, if it took, 500 mailers to get, this particular multifamily, then obviously there's a lot more of the 2 and 3 families than there are of the 100 unit buildings. What if we instead do 1,500 mailers, and let's see where that gets us? And at least it gives you a starting point that then it starts bringing in data. So maybe, 1,500, maybe you get 10 leads and maybe you don't close any, but sure, no problem. But at least it gives you a data point based off of what you've done in the past. I like that it's more process-based rather than just focusing on the outcome and trying to do too much or not being precise with your actions in order to go after those loftier goals. So love that. All right. I do not want this podcast episode to end, but it has to, unfortunately. But going into the core 4, which are the 4 questions that I ask each and every guest on the Austin Smith Real Estate Podcast. Question number 1, what is your favorite aspect about real estate? And it's not, closing $105,000 deals. Over there, I'm pretty sure that would be anybody. What is your favorite aspect about real estate?
Mine is the freedom it provides. Throughout our rental properties, we're now financially independent. We don't have to work a job. So it's being able to be financially free.
And I would piggyback off that, being financially free and it allowing us to do what we want to do at this point in time, and giving us the flexibility to open up other business ventures is what really gets me going. Is that, we're serial entrepreneurs. So real estate is only one part of our family business. So
interesting. Okay, awesome. Question number 2, considering the fact that I know you've devoured books, I know Crystal is more of the audio version and the Cliff Nuggets version, but your favorite business or personal development book or audio book?
So the book that I'm reading right now, which I actually had just ordered it to read, is it actually just came today, is, I don't know if you can see that, Getting Things Done, The Art of Stress-Free Productivity.
Yes. Is that by David Allen? Who's that by?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, by David.
Right? Okay.
Yeah.
I was looking at my bookcase. I think that's up there. That one's
Yeah, it had been sitting in my Amazon cart for a few weeks, and it was brought up in a conversation. I'm like, why does that sound so familiar? So I went back to it, and I'm like, oh, that's why I was supposed to buy that book like weeks ago. So that's what I'm reading now. What about you?
I mean, my book is Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. It's a negotiation book. If you read that, you will become a master negotiator. You implement it.
That's on the that's in the cart. That's in the everlasting cart.
You got to get that.
That was the FBI agent, I think, or hostage negotiator, something like that, right?
Listen to it on Audible. You're going to love it. And it's going to take your negotiation skills to the next level. Okay.
So, all right. So now I've heard about it a couple of times, and I definitely got to grab it. Getting Things Done is a really good book. Just helping you, just the importance of working from lists, the importance of delegation, which is, one of those things that is just not done too often. I know in me and my business, I try to do a little bit of everything too much, which, I got to do a much better job at just delegating just some of the tasks, because obviously there's no way to get it all done. But and I say this, there's never enough time to do everything, but there's always enough time to get the most important things done on a daily basis. And that book is good, so you'll definitely enjoy that. Question number 3, what are the fun things that you like to do in your spare time when you're not out doing a bunch of deals, when you're not out educating the community on how to do deals just like you? What are some of the fun things that you like to do in the spare time?
Some of the things that I like to do is I love to cook, which anyone who knows me will be like, is she serious? Because I never, ever cooked growing up until I got married. But now I absolutely love cooking.
You're an amazing cook. Amazing.
You're lucky, man. It's something about it.
Oh, my baby can.
I love to travel. I've been like that my entire life. I love to dance. I'm a dancer, of course. So I still love to dance, and I love, doing stuff with my kids. I love planning parties for them, and I'm really, really creative. So my downtime, I just love to do stuff around the house for them, and that's just me at this point.
Yeah, and mine's is whatever my wife. No, I'm just playing. Mine's is travel. I love traveling. We're taking the family down to South Carolina, down to Hilton Head Island next week. So looking forward to that. So traveling.
Awesome. And last but not least, the Polite family. Where can people find you at?
They can find us. Well, first they can find our. We talk about Driving for Dollars, so they can find our course at drivingfordollarscourse.com. I'll send it to Austin to put into the show notes. If you want Deal Machine or you're thinking about getting Deal Machine, you go to getdealmachine.com. That's getdealmachine.com. You can register for the app. It's a 14-day free trial, and you get your first 30 postcards free. Just make sure you use a code BEPOLITE. So B as in Brian, E as in Edward, and our last name Polite. And then all things Be Polite. So if you look us up on Facebook, we got a ton of videos dropping knowledge on YouTube, a ton of YouTube videos, Facebook, Instagram. Be polite.
Awesome. Well, obviously on this podcast, you've been nothing but polite, considering the fact that you've been pulling back the curtain on the entire business and just how you've been able to systemize the lead generation strategy so that way you can get a continuous deal flow coming through the pipeline for you to continue to take down these deals. It's been amazing. Thank you so much for taking the time. I'm definitely grateful that you got the opportunity to give the listeners just some actionable steps, just something that they can take and put into use right away, which I hope that they do, because obviously and again, I'm putting a lot of emphasis on, I hope the listeners understand the gold and the value that you two provided on this podcast here today, because it is, and I say that honestly because very seldom do I get guests where it resonates so much with what people are going through now, which one of the biggest things is finding deals. And then the other one is, I don't have the money, but the funding piece is a lot easier than the finding deal part, at least in my opinion. And, just taking that information and being able to apply it, not only in their market, but any other market, is so, so key. And I hope that they take it and run with it, because I should charge for this particular podcast episode, because anybody that literally takes what you two have mentioned and said today and put it into action immediately are going to see results. So again, thank you two so much for coming on the show. We greatly appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. Anytime, Austin.
Thanks for having us.
We'll obviously be in contact. I usually tell that I usually have family member every other place that my guests are, but not in North Carolina. So I don't know when I'm going to be in there or be in that area. But obviously, I've made it a point, at least on my end, that anytime I'm in the city of a previous podcast guest or anything like that, I always reach out to them. Try to grab 15 minutes, lunch or whatever the case. Because obviously we're all in the relationship business and we're all in the community business, and what we're doing here is amazing. And I always just like to keep that going. That's one of the reasons why I got into real estate. So it's not just sitting behind the desk and doing your job. You're actually getting a chance to meet some really great individuals. And that's what life is all about, just, great experiences. So here we are.
Yeah, make sure you look us up. If you're ever in North Carolina, we're in Jersey, we're definitely going to look you up.
110%. Thank you so much. Again, thank you.
All right, you're welcome.
Have a good one.
Enjoy.